The moment Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett walked into Dallas Love Field that Tuesday morning, she had no idea that in 30 minutes she would be surrounded by TSA officers, missing her cousin's funeral and becoming the center of a national controversy that would expose the ugly truth about how power and respect work in America. Jasmine had been running on empty for 3 weeks straight. Committee meetings in Sacramento, policy roundtables in San Antonio, and a last-minute town hall in Tulsa. Her carry-on bag had barely been unpacked between stops, but today was different. Today was personal. Her cousin Devin had passed away at just 42 years old from liver failure. She had grown up with him like a brother, and missing his funeral was not an option. No matter how exhausted she felt or how little sleep she had gotten, wearing a simple black dress under her blazer, Jasmine moved through the terminal with quiet urgency. She clutched a coffee in one hand and her phone in the other, scanning emails from her assistant while walking toward the Southwest check-in desk. Her flight to Jackson, Mississippi was scheduled to board at 7:10 in the morning. First sign of trouble was the look. Not the kind that lasts long, just a flicker. The young man behind the counter glanced up from his screen, then back down, then smirked slightly. Jasmine knew that look. She had been dealing with it her entire career. She handed over her boarding confirmation and identification. I am on flight 23762 Jackson. I would like to check my carry-on. The agent tapped a few keys, then frowned. You are not in the system. Jasmine stayed calm. That cannot be right. I checked in an hour ago. Here. She handed over her phone. Boarding pass is right here. He glanced at the screen, then back at her. Well, there has been a change. Your seat has been reassigned. You will have to wait. Reassigned to what? He did not answer right away.
I am not.
Instead, he leaned back in his chair and waved toward someone else behind the desk. Hey, can you come take a look at this? Jasmine glanced at the clock. 6:43. Her heart started to beat faster in her chest, but her voice stayed level. Can you just tell me what the issue is? I have a funeral to attend. The second employee arrived, barely sparing her a glance. She is flagged for random review, she said flatly. We are going to need to recheck your credentials. Jasmine blinked. Excuse me? It is routine. No, it is not. I have taken this route 4 times this year. This has never happened. The first agent stood. Ma'am, if you do not calm down, I am going to have to ask you to step aside. Jasmine raised. Her eyebrows calmed down. I am asking a question. That is enough. Please stand over there. Passengers behind her had started to pay attention. Phones were in hand. Someone whispered, That is Congresswoman Crockett. But that did not seem to matter here. Jasmine stepped aside, jaw locked. She pulled out her government identification. I am not hiding anything. I am on official travel. They barely looked. At the badge, the second agent said, Identification does not override protocol. A sharp sinking feeling ran through her gut. Something was not right. This was not a misunderstanding. This was personal. Still, she kept her voice even. I will cooperate with whatever is required, but I would like to speak to a supervisor. That was when the first agent motioned to someone out of view and said, Security, please. But Jasmine had not raised her voice, had not broken any rules. And now she was being treated like a threat. Jasmine stood quietly near the end of the counter. Arms crossed, eyes fixed on a stain in the carpet beneath her feet. It was the kind of moment that demanded stillness, not weakness. She was not about to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. She could feel the passengers behind her looking. Some whispering, others recording discreetly behind raised phones. One woman made eye contact and mouthed, I am sorry. Jasmine gave her a quick nod. She appreciated it, but sympathy was not going to fix this. 2 TSA officers walked up, not rushed, not calm either. That in-between pace that always came with a suspicion that had already been decided. Need you to come with us, one of them said. For what? Jasmine asked, not moving. Her voice was clear, not loud. Random review. Please do not make this more difficult than it has to be. She slowly held out her boarding pass and identification again. I've already checked in. This is an official government trip? That is a real badge? There is no issue here except the one you are creating. The officer did not look at the identification. He did not even ask a follow-up, ma'am. Please, he repeated. We are not asking. There it was. Quiet threat. Jasmine glanced over at the gate screen. Flight 2376 was still on time. Boarding started in 10 minutes, she thought. About her mother waiting in Jackson, already texting her where to sit. She thought about Devin's little girl, who had asked if Auntie Jazz would say something at the service. She closed her eyes for a second, inhaled, then walked with the officers. They led her away from the crowd, through a side door near the edge. Of the gate terminal, the hallway was quiet. Fluorescent lights flickered faintly overhead. A third agent met them halfway and said something in hushed tones that Jasmine could not hear. The officers nodded and turned to her again. We will need to do a full pat-down, one of them said. Also, your bag will be screened. No warrant, no probable cause, no explanation, she said softly. You are walking a line you are not trained to cross. One of them replied, you can file. A complaint later, Jasmine did not speak after that. She stood with her arms out, letting them pat her down with cold efficiency. Her bag was opened, her toiletries pulled out, her files shuffled. No one explained anything. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. She finally broke the silence. Can someone please explain the reassignment? Why I was pulled? One of the agents finally glanced up. I do not handle seating, that is airline. We were called because you were being difficult. Difficult? Her voice finally cracked. I asked a question. I did not yell. I did not resist. I complied with everything you said. He shrugged. We respond to what we are told. That is our job. Jasmine looked at her watch. 7:16. Her flight had already left the gate. For a moment she said nothing. Then she sat down in the cold metal chair against the wall. Her hands rested on her knees, eyes locked forward. She was not just missing a flight now. She was missing a funeral. She was missing a promise. She was being punished in plain view for nothing. One of the TSA officers stepped outside to make a call. The other leaned against the wall with his arms crossed, avoiding eye contact. Jasmine took her phone out and sent one message. I was pulled. I missed the flight. I need you here. She hit send and waited. But the next person who walked through those doors would not ask questions, the same way Jasmine had. He would not need to. Franklin Rhodes had always walked with quiet authority. He did not need attention to know his presence was felt. 30 years on the bench taught him that tone often mattered more than volume. Still, when his wife texted him just 3 words, I need you, something in his chest tightened. He was already in the car, not far from the terminal. Jasmine had insisted he did not come inside earlier, said it was a short flight, nothing to worry about. But something had gone wrong, and when she said need, she meant now. Back inside the terminal, Jasmine sat alone. The TSA officers had moved. A few steps away, now whispering among themselves while trying not to glance in her direction. Her bag was half-zipped, her paperwork scattered back into it without care. She had repacked it slowly on her own as they watched. Her blazer was wrinkled. Her hair, once neatly pinned, now fell in loose curls around her face. She looked composed, but beneath it, quiet fire was burning. The same airline agent who had flagged her earlier now stood near the corner of the hallway. Arms crossed, eyes on the floor, like he was waiting for this part to just be over. One who called security had not come back. At 7:36, the automatic doors opened. Franklin stepped in, wearing a dark gray coat, black slacks, and a maroon scarf that Jasmine had bought him last Christmas. His walk was measured, his eyes sharp. Jasmine stood when she saw him. She did not speak. She did not need to. He looked around at the agents, the officers, the mess on the table. Then he looked at his wife. Are you okay? She nodded once. He turned. To the closest TSA officer, who is in charge here? The man hesitated. Sir, can I ask who you are? I am Franklin Rhodes, retired federal judge, 9th Circuit. Who is in charge? The officer blinked, caught off guard. One moment. Franklin turned to Jasmine. What happened? I questioned a change in my seat. They said I was disruptive. I showed identification. They did not care. Then I missed my flight. Did you raise your voice? No. Make a scene. No. The officer came back, now accompanied by a supervisor with a lanyard and walkie-talkie. The supervisor extended a hand halfway. Judge Rhodes, we were unaware. Franklin did not take the hand. Why was my wife's seat reassigned? I would have to check with the gate, then check. The supervisor nodded and scurried off. Franklin turned back to the agent at the desk, the same young man who had smirked earlier. What was your reason for calling security? She would not stand down. She asked why her seat was changed. Yes, but... Did she shout, no? Did she threaten anyone? No. Franklin leaned in just enough. You do understand that what you did is considered targeted escalation, correct? That security was called without cause? That her identification was ignored? That you detained a federal official without probable suspicion? The agent swallowed. I did not know who she was. Franklin did not blink. It should not matter. There was a silence so thick it hummed. One of the passengers who had been watching earlier walked by the hallway, saw what was happening, and pulled out her phone again. Word was spreading. Another agent walked in, the one who had missed everything earlier. He saw Franklin, the badge, the stare from Jasmine. He whispered something to the supervisor. Then the apologies began. Ma'am, we deeply regret the... No, Franklin interrupted. She does not need an apology. She needed dignity 20 minutes ago. The supervisor looked flustered. We would like to offer rebooking, first-class seat, next flight. Her head. He is not trying to get me a better seat. He is trying to get you to realize you do not get to treat people like that. Not me, not anyone. But by then, the moment they should have cared about had already passed. Franklin did not raise his voice. He never had to. His tone was clipped but calm, the kind of calm that filled a room with tension. You could almost see it settle over the space like dust. It's quiet but impossible to ignore. The gate manager arrived moments later, out of breath, carrying a clipboard and a look that said he was already in damage control mode. His eyes darted between the TSA officers, the airline staff, and the couple standing side by side like a wall that was not about to budge. Judge Rhodes, Congresswoman Crockett, save it, Franklin said. We are not interested in your introductions. I want a name. The manager blinked. Excuse me? The name of the person who made the call to security. The one who decided. My wife was a problem for asking about her boarding pass. Manager hesitated. That is a personnel matter. Franklin stepped forward just enough to close the space. So is discrimination. His voice did not need to climb. The manager looked at Jasmine, then back to Franklin. He shifted his weight. I understand this is a serious concern. We are reviewing. No, Franklin cut in again. You are not. You are scrambling. The TSA officers were now standing in the background, silent. The young agent who dismissed Jasmine earlier had vanished, likely hiding somewhere down the terminal, avoiding whatever this was about to turn into. Jasmine did not say a word. She stood there, arms crossed loosely in front of her. Her silence was deliberate. Now she was watching how it all played out, and she was not going to help them soften the blow. Franklin continued. You allowed your staff to escalate a non-confrontation into a security incident. You ignored federal credentials. You detained a sitting congresswoman, obstructing her travel without a single legal basis. All because someone did not like being questioned. The gate manager swallowed hard. I will speak with my regional supervisor. You will do more than that, I promise. Judge Rhodes will launch a full internal review. Jasmine finally spoke. Quiet, sharp. Do not launch it because he is here. You should have launched it the moment I was pulled. The room stayed still for a beat. You could hear the intercom overhead calling boarding for another flight, some other gate, some other crowd. But right here, things had stopped. Franklin looked down at his watch. You have cost her a funeral that cannot be fixed. Issue a public apology, not just to her, but to everyone you have done this to and did not think twice about. The gate manager opened his mouth, but thought better of it. Jasmine looked him in the eye. And no, you do not get to reframe this. It do. Not spin it like there was confusion. This was judgment, plain and loud. More passengers had gathered near the area now. A man with a baseball cap stood watching from the edge. A middle-aged woman whispered to her husband and pointed toward the couple. Another person, younger, maybe early 20s, sat on the floor, near a charging station, and typed fast on their phone. The story was already leaving the terminal. Jasmine adjusted the strap on her shoulder and turned to Franklin. "Let us go. You sure?" "Yeah," she said. "There is nothing left here for them to explain." They walked toward the exit without looking back. No security escort, no hasty employees following them with nervous smiles, no free vouchers, no first class upgrade, just silence. And behind them, a wave of regret none of those people had expected to feel that morning. But what came after they walked out would be bigger than anything, inside those walls. By the time Jasmine and Franklin reached the parking lot, her phone had already begun buzzing with missed calls and unread messages. She ignored them all. Her fingers curled around the handle of her suitcase, but she was not walking toward the car just yet. She needed air, not just oxygen, space. Space to cool the fire crawling up her chest. Franklin stood beside her, calm as always, watching the terminal doors like they still owed him an answer. "They did not expect me to show up," he finally said, voice low. "They did not expect anyone to care," Jasmine replied. He glanced at her. "You okay?" She nodded, but it was one of those nods that carried weight. Not the kind that meant yes. Kind that meant I will be okay later. Inside the terminal, the ripple had already begun. Videos were online. One caught the exact moment Jasmine had been walked out of the gate area, her head high, arms by her sides, surrounded by officers who would not meet her gaze. Another clip showed Franklin demanding names. It was spreading faster than any apology could catch up. In a small break room near the back of the Southwest office, the young gate agent sat slumped in a chair. His name tag read Cullen. His hands were clasped tightly, staring down at the floor. The manager stood by the door, arms folded. "You could have just moved her to a new seat," the manager said quietly. "That is all she asked?" "I did not know who." "She was," Cullen muttered. "You do not get to treat people like that, whether you know them or not." "I thought she was being difficult. She asked a question. That is not a crime." Cullen did not respond. He did not need to. The weight of it was sinking in now. Not just that he had messed up, but that everyone had seen it. That the face he rolled his eyes at belonged to someone who knew how power worked, because she had earned hers without ever raising her voice. And now people were watching every misstep, every word. Outside, Franklin leaned on the back of their car while Jasmine stood near the trunk, finally reading the messages on her phone. One from a staffer in Washington said a journalist had already reached out. Another from her aunt in Jackson. "He would have been proud of you, Jazz. Do not let them make you small." Jasmine took a deep breath. "They will try to spin this." "They can try," Franklin said. "But it is already public. I just wanted to go to a funeral." "I know." A long pause. She looked up at him. "Did I handle it right?" Franklin tilted his head. "You did not give them what they wanted. That is more than most people could have done. It was not just about being right. It was about being human and watching that humanity get ignored like it meant nothing." Inside, the airline's regional supervisor had joined the scene. Statements were being taken. Damage control teams had already begun crafting language that sounded remorseful without admitting liability. That line, the one big companies never cross. But something about this was not going away. It was not just about Jasmine. People saw their own mothers, sisters, wives in that video. They recognized the tone, the dismissal, the look that said you do not belong here, even when everything in your hand says you do. And they were angry. Apologies came first internally, then on social media. The airline released a short statement hours later. "We regret the incident involving Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and are reviewing our procedures to ensure every customer is treated with respect and professionalism." No names, no real ownership. But that did not matter anymore, because respect should not be situational, and dignity does not require a title. But this story was not over. Not for the people watching, not for the ones quietly remembering moments when they were treated just the same. Later that evening, Jasmine sat on the edge of a hotel bed in Jackson, staring at the untouched plate of room service beside her. Franklin had gone downstairs to make a few phone calls. The memorial had already ended. Her family sent her pictures. They tried not to sound disappointed, but Jasmine could hear it anyway, in the gaps between words, in the silence after "we missed you." She scrolled through the news on her phone, headlines everywhere. Congresswoman Crockett, removed from flight after dispute at gate. TSA and airline under fire after detaining federal official without cause. Passenger footage sparks public outrage. Jasmine did not want to read them. She lived it. She did not need someone else's version. But the part she did not expect, the part that caught her throat, were the comments. Not just the anger, though there was plenty of that, was the recognition. People sharing their own stories. School teachers, nurses, military veterans, elderly passengers. All of them describing moments when they were pulled aside, questioned, treated like problems for simply existing in the wrong line or asking the wrong question. A woman from Arizona wrote, "I did not have a title, so they talked to me like I was nothing. I did not fight back. I just cried in the bathroom." A man from Oakland posted, "The way they handled her is the way they handled my father. He missed his heart surgery. No one apologized. It went on and on." Jasmine felt something catch in her chest. This was not just about what had happened at Gate 22B. It was about something older, something far more common. Franklin walked in a few minutes later, set his phone down on the desk. "You are everywhere," he said. "I know." He looked at her for a moment. "You want to talk about it?" She shook her head. "Not yet." He sat beside her. He did the right thing, even when they did not. Jasmine looked over at the window, the city. Outside was still. Streetlights humming, cars passing in slow intervals. "They treated me like I was invisible," she said finally, "like I did not belong, even when I showed them who I was." Franklin nodded. "You think they will learn from it?" "I do not know," she said. "But maybe someone else will, because that is the thing about moments like these. They stick. Not always for the people who caused them, but for the people who lived through them. And for the people watching, remembering, realizing, this has happened to me too." Later that week, Jasmine returned to Washington. She declined the morning news interviews. She did not want her face turned into a symbol. She wanted a conversation, not a spectacle. Instead, she wrote a letter, one that got published in several newspapers. In it, she wrote, "This is not just about one gate or one airline. It is about how quickly some people in power forget the basic rules of human decency. About how easily someone's voice can be dismissed when it does not come wrapped in privilege or pedigree. It is about how dignity is not something that should be given based on recognition, should be automatic every single time." That line was quoted more than any other. The airline eventually issued a longer apology, one that named her directly. But by then, the public had already written their own version of the story. One where Jasmine Crockett was not just a congresswoman, she was a stand-in for every person who has been overlooked, silenced or pushed to the side like their voice did not carry weight, and she did not yell, she did not threaten. She stood still and let the world see what it really looks like when someone who deserves better is treated like they do not matter. But the final message was not hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had been quietly waiting for someone to speak up when no one else did. A week later, Jasmine Crockett sat alone on a bench outside Union Station in Washington. She had just finished a meeting with a group of young interns working on civil rights policy. They did not ask her about committees or legislation. They asked about the airport. One of them, a 19-year-old from Kansas named Talia, said quietly, "I saw the video. I have been treated like that before. I did not know what to say when it happened. You did not say much either, but you made it loud." That stayed with Jasmine. Because sometimes the moment does not call for noise. It calls for stillness. A kind of stillness that forces the world to look at what it is doing. She thought back to the look on that gate agent's face when Franklin asked for his name. The silence that followed. The realization that he had not just disrespected a passenger. He had exposed himself. Not to a title, but to a truth he probably was not ready to see. Remembered what Franklin told her the night they got back to their home in Fort Worth. Most people think power comes with a badge or a desk. But real power is when you know who you are and no one can take that away, even if they try. That had been the lesson all along. Not just for the airline, for everyone watching. Because the truth is, this was not an isolated story. Just the one that got caught on camera? The one that featured someone with a title, a platform, a voice too loud to ignore? But what about the ones who are not in Congress? What about the woman trying to get to her daughter's graduation? Is the man flying across the country for a job interview? Is the grandmother going home to bury her brother? What happens when they get dismissed? Franklin was right. Should never take a title for someone to be treated with basic human decency. Jasmine leaned back on the bench, watching people rush past with coffee cups, briefcases, earbuds in, heads down. Everyone trying to get somewhere. Everyone hoping the world does not stop them just for being themselves. She picked up her phone and drafted one more message to her staff. It read, "Next town hall, we open with a story, not about politics, about people, about what happened at Gate 22B, because stories matter.
Not for the drama.
Not for the headlines, but because they hold up a mirror and force us to ask, if that had been me, what would I have done? More importantly, if I had been the one in power, how would I have treated her?" The lesson was not about shame, it was about awareness, and the reminder that dignity is not a reward, it is a right. So, to anyone who has ever been talked down to, brushed off, pushed aside, to anyone who has ever had to prove they belong in a place they already paid to be in, to anyone who has ever swallowed their words because they were afraid their tone might be used against them, your story matters. And one day, someone will speak it, with or without a camera watching. So the next time you are in line at a counter or behind a desk, look people in the eye. Listen, do not assume. Because how we treat people when no one is watching says everything about who we are when everyone is.